The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast, the podcast that is here to help you, a loved one, or a friend get started down the road to recovery. This is the Friends in Recovery podcast, brought to you by the Genesis House. Genesis House, providing a safe, nurturing environment to heal from addiction since 1992. Please be a friend and share our message with a friend on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. And now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey everybody, welcome to our show, Friends in Recovery podcast. And we're here at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, and this is a quite a mecca. Isn't this a great place?
It's awesome. It's beautiful.
Great. It's my friend Joe Rizzuti. Joe is a retired Revere police officer, Revere, Massachusetts, and he does an awful lot for many people in recovery, and great guy. So Joe, thanks for coming today.
How about those Red Sox, huh?
How about those Red Sox?
The Red Sox. I know we have a lot of listeners all over the country.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I was actually at the game Wednesday night. Yeah, I was at the game. They won 4-2. My friend and Tom Fleming. We went to the game. We had great seats, and it was just incredible. Once in a lifetime.
You know, that brings in a good point. The folks are in recovery. How do you deal with going to a sporting event when you're new in recovery?
Right. Good point. It's funny, even when you're old in recovery.
Yes.
And you see the beers flowing, and everybody's got a couple of cold ones, and they're hooting and hollering. You've been sober a long time.
About 7 years, going on 7 years.
It's a long time.
And, it was was my choice. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And,
right.
No big jackpots, but it was just at the point where I knew, I was drinking too much. And,
sure.
I was a stress cop for the folks that don't know. I was doing the stress work. And I reached out to friends in Boston, and and I said, just started going to meetings. And then I was injured in the job, and I had to retire. And I just fell in love with doing what I was doing, and I just kept doing it.
Absolutely.
And I'm here today.
The history of, when you said Boston, the history of recovery for me in law enforcement, you go back 30-something years, and, there wasn't a lot around, but there was Eddie Donovan.
Absolutely. You get a big shout out. He's still,
right.
he's probably watching us.
Right.
He's living in Florida. The Shattered Badger. For you folks want to read a good
Great book.
Get it on Amazon.
Right. And you got a book out yourself.
Yeah, it's more for academics. When I wrote that book, I did it because I grew up with a learning disability, and I wanted to prove a point that if you put your mind to something, you can do it.
Right.
And just like recovery, it takes work. And I did the book using Dragon and the tools. I'm a guy that barely got out of high school, but fell in love with the military. I was, believe it or not, a military recruiter for the National Guard, youngest recruiter in the history of the Guard. Worked hard. You always have to work harder when you have a learning disability. And I did that book, and it's been kind of fun.
Yeah, it was great. And you were a military police officer, right?
Yeah.
95 Bravo, is that what
the old 95 Bravo? I don't know what the acronym is.
I don't know what it is now either.
But again, going back to the addiction piece and what we're talking about, you don't have to be born. My biological dad had the gene.
Right.
As I did the research.
Right.
Because I was wondering how did I could do this.
Right.
But we're talking about jobs that cause you a lot of stress. You don't have to be a police or fire or corrections, but any of the jobs we see people, the connection.
Right.
You get injured. We're seeing that. You see that. We see it so much that you get injured, and we're looking to self-medicate, and all of a sudden it becomes a problem.
Sure. Sure. I think when I look back at my own, alcohol, drug use, started young and everything, and it was just escaping from whatever. I mean, I didn't have a bad childhood. I had a pretty good childhood, but I just liked that feeling of utopia, I guess. I don't know. And I wasn't a fall down, drunk. I was a happy guy, always having a good time. But it's what it did to me. I actually had people in my family say, you're not an alcoholic.
Oh, I still get it. Yeah, I get it.
You're not, but the good news is this, and I know you well enough to know how hard you work. I mean, if there's anybody busier than you, I want to meet him.
Well, and I got to give that a good shout out. Genesis House does a great job. They're one of the original folks that stepped up to the plate. Lately there's been a lot of folks, that come out of the woodwork and they want to help us. That's all well and good. But Genesis House was one of the first that specialize in our business.
Absolutely.
And the On-Site Academy, where I volunteer and I work at an on-site. What my issue was is I was a cop 24/7. I could, I had time disconnecting.
Right.
I love the profession so much. So what I did was actually went to On-Site, and they helped me with the identity crisis, because again, a lot of our brothers and sisters, we're seeing too many people retire young from our job. Nobody's making the 32 years. For the folks out there, Massachusetts, we have a 32-year retirement. We don't have the 20 years. In the job, firefighter, police, EMS, it's awful hard to disconnect.
Well, it's also hard to make those numbers and get there. The highest rate of heart attack, strokes are people in our type of business, prior to being 62, 63 years old. And, the average life expectancy of a white male is right around 79 to 80 right now, currently, because of the opioid crisis. It's brought the numbers down. But the average life expectancy of a police officer is 61.
Well, I think there was a study that just recently,
firefighter.
That, I think the statistics are out there. The BPD, Boston Police Department, which really is the standard bearer throughout the country, I got to give them a shout out. They're the best in the business. If you have any questions and you want to talk to those folks, they're readily accessible. They did a study, I think, about 6 years ago, and they said the average age for retired police officers, they're dying 5 years after retiring, because of we don't take care of ourselves. But it's the same, I would imagine, in the fire service, the correction service.
Oh, absolutely. Correctional officers have surpassed police officers. This is the Department of Justice stats that are recent in suicide, in divorce, in heart, cardiac problems, stroke. Alcoholism, drug addiction, it's such a stressful job. People are seeing it more and more, because now, years ago, I was a correctional officer when I first got out of the Army. It was a different ballgame then. You turned a key, basically. Now there's care and custody. You got to watch these people. There's a lot of mental health issues in prison. You're not just watching somebody who was a shoplifter or an armed robber. You're watching somebody with some mental health issues and trying to keep them safe from other people. So it's a very stressful job. The jobs in general that are out there today, the public safety jobs that, the unsung hero, the folks at the EMS, that work for these private EMS companies. We've got tools. Mike knows a good vetted clinician that's been there, done that, this guy here. But the debriefings that they started, about 30-some years ago, Jeff Mitchell, where we... instead of doing choir practice, a great movie, Choir Boys, before we'd go to a bar room at the end of the night, and that's how we talked about it in the law enforcement. The fire service is a little different. They have the kitchen table, they can talk about it. But now we've got tools that you do a debriefing after a major event, and you get it out, and you don't. That's what happened to me. I believe, you go down there, you go to a job, you drink, and all of a sudden, when the bar's closed, you still continue to drink. And I think that's what we're seeing, I got sober in my department in '86 in Lowell, and it was kind of a touch and go. I found recovery on my own, basically. But as time went on, they integrated the EAP program into the Lowell Police, and I was fortunate enough to be the EAP the last 8 years of my career, the employee assistant profession. Well, but I loved it, and also helped me to help people, and I'm still actually involved. And I'm very fortunate, because I really believe when I'm sitting across from a police officer or a correctional officer or an EMT or anybody or a family member of one of them, I feel like I'm just connected. I feel like I understand what they're saying. I know what their next sentence is going to be sometimes, and they certainly understand where I'm coming from. So I think it's it's a type of profession that if you have some knowledge, like you do, because all you do is help people, it goes a long way.
I think I'm really excited, because the last 5 years, we've seen a real change and correct me if I'm wrong, in the attitude, especially in Massachusetts. We've got 18 regionalized debriefing teams in Massachusetts that it's actually funded by the state. The training's for nothing. That we get called out on major incidents, cops on cops, firefighters on firefighters, corrections, and we're out there at 2:00 in the morning after a major incident, debriefing and defusing. And then if we find that the brother or sister needs more, guys like Mike and facilities like Genesis House and On-Site, we can get them help. And it's really a great time to be involved with this.
Well, you're a humble guy, and I know you do a lot more than that behind the scenes. And I know,
thanks.
I know this summer there was a couple officers shot unexpectedly, and you were there. And tell me a little bit about that. About about feeding the
well, I tell you
the masses.
Well, I tell you what, it's funny. As you know, I'm not plugging my own business, but one of my reinvents was I always wanted to do a hot dog business. I grew up on Revere Beach, Danny's, and
stand by. Go ahead.
I did, Danny's hot dogs, and Joe and Emo. So I opened a hot dog business up in the Lowell area.
Yeah.
And it's been a great resource to get people help.
Hold on.
But what happened was with Boston Police Department, anytime there's a major event around, we realize you go to the funerals, you go to these events. One thing officers are looking for is they're looking for food. So Boston was one of the first, along with New York. They get these food trailers, and the FOP, Massachusetts Fraternal Order of Police, specifically, along with Boston, we've got these food trailers, and we go out and we feed folks at these the funerals, at the wakes. But more importantly, Mike, this is the key. Boston went one step further. Everybody that's on our food trucks that go out and feed the masses, they're all peer support qualified.
Oh, yeah.
So we can recognize somebody that's in crisis. So we just did, unfortunately, we had a run of bad luck in Massachusetts. I was fortunate down in Weymouth, and there was you get qualified counselors. Boston was out there. FOP team was out there. We're able to identify 3 folks that were just having a hard time. They were triggered.
Right.
So when you see us out there doing this, you got to realize the folks that are out there, they're trained peer counselors. It's an awesome thing we're doing.
I think that makes it even more important. And truly, to take time out of your own day. I mean, because these things happen at a drop of a hat. You don't.
It's all volunteer. You're right.
And you don't know when you're going to go. You might have your own plans, and I know you. I mean, I've seen you out there, and I just think it's amazing. And to give back like that, and I know you're not making a ton of dough. You're probably losing money. I just think it's something that you really should be lauded for.
Thanks, but you know what, Mike? It is. You don't want to see.
No, I know.
You don't want to see a brother or sister go through what I've been involved with the shootings. I've been involved with the tough incidents. If we can, the bottom line and the bottom picture is right now in Massachusetts, we've got 11 brothers and sisters that have taken their own life as of today.
Right.
If we can stop one by putting the peer support and have folks like you and Genesis in the education, you know what? You can't put a price on that.
I agree. And, as far as Genesis goes, Genesis House, I've sent, people I love down there, and I've sent police officers, family members of police officers. And Ed Chaccio had just called in. I'm going to call him back in a minute. But, I've been in a treatment facility many years ago, and I'm sure, I think you've been in one. Maybe not. Did you go to?
No. I called it quits myself, and I was very fortunate that it worked.
Yeah. And I went. I had some severe problems, but the bottom line is when you're a police officer, and not that you're any better or different, but in a sense your job's different. People look at you differently, and it's kind of a scary place to be. But Genesis House, I've had more success. It's amazing. It's amazing. People that go there, I tell them what it's about. They come back, and you know what? It's been a great venue, really good venue.
We've used them, and what I like about Genesis House, they're almost a sister to where I work at, because they use natural modalities, and I also honestly. The geographical cure, getting somebody out of your environment, Mike.
Right.
Listen, going down to West Palm Beach ain't a bad thing.
No.
But it's not a cakewalk.
Right.
You talk to folks down there. This is not a summer camp. It's not. It's work.
Right.
And I think that's the key.
I love the old saying too. But we're talking about geographical cures. If you put a jackass in a crate at Logan and send it down to Fort Lauderdale, you still got a jackass.
Yeah.
So you're going to have some work done on it. And I'm going to call Ed back. I think he might have something important to tell us, or maybe not.
Well, again, you call him back. I think the other thing too is what's great about Genesis House. They don't let a person come back to Massachusetts without a plan. And
hey Ed, how are you doing? What's that? I don't think the audience can hear you because my phone doesn't really pick you up. But
how's those Yankees doing?
Yep. Joe wants to know how the Yankees are doing.
I forgot.
All right, we got a bad connection. 27, right? All right, we'll get back to you. But
again, there's been a lot of, I've been doing. It was 1996. I had a bad incident, and it's a funny story how I got up to on-site. And I had 2 bad incidents. One was a rape of a child, and I responded to it, my grandfather having a stroke, and there was another instance where somebody had grabbed my gun, and it was just my department talked about, we go to protocol Boston Police, and they. At the time, Dr. John Barry was a police psychologist, great guy.
Stone him.
Well, they sent me up. I go up to Onsite, and Onsite was just started, and it was all peer-driven, and it's all about police stress. And I fell in love with the place. It was 1996. I remember getting, going to a debriefing on the calls.
Right.
And what I like about, again, Genesis House was up and running back then. They were the only ones in town. Lately, again, everybody means well.
Right.
But again, proven track record, folks that have been there, done that. And I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's huge.
Just real quick, on the On-Site Academy, Dr. Hayden Duggan.
Yeah. Val.
It's a facility. Tell the people what it's about.
It's a nonprofit. These two, I call them angels because that's what they are. Hayden and his wife Val. She, I think her background was Lowell General, psych nurse. Yep. Hayden was a EMS folk person in Boston. Correct me if I'm wrong. The guy's amazing. Deputy fire chief. They took they seen a need for a residential for post-traumatic stress facility.
Right.
They opened up this little farm up in western part of Massachusetts, and it's all peer-driven. And we use these modalities that you use, EMDR, thought field therapy. It's not a medical facility. We've serviced thousands and thousands. You name it, from the Oklahoma bombings, Boston bombings, 9/11. You name it, they've come through there. And I've been honored. Honored to meet some of these heroes. Right. And again, it's a lot of people don't know about it. Right. And he used it that way, but
well kept secret.
But again, you need a good medical treatment facility, and you need the secondary, the post-care, Mike. Guys like Mike and the work you do, and there's a lot of other ones that have been vetted, that have been done to the job, because you hear this all the time. They've come to you, they go sit down somebody who's got a shingle, and they feel like, we're not getting anywhere, and they don't go, and that's the end of their treatment. Right.
Yeah, it's real important to be able to sit and talk, and I have a gentleman now who's a high-end guy, and he works in the EMS field, and we just clicked like that. And it was funny because when he came into my office, you sent him, there was a minute of uncomfortableness, but until he sees the wall, and I got pictures of cops and all this, and Bruce Springsteen and the Three Stooges, and all of a sudden the whole guard comes down, and you can just feel he's human. We're connected.
Well, I'll tell you another big thing we keep forgetting about, and I'd love to just touch on it, is I know my wife suffered being a cop's wife, and they do. The family takes a beating. We've got a couple of good family counselors, same thing like Mike. They've been there. They're affiliated with somebody on the job. You need to have someone, if you're doing family counseling, and God knows police, we all have the marital issues, that understands the job. And I can't stress this enough to the folks out there. If you're going through something, your marriage is worth the save, find the right therapist. We've got a couple. I got one now that I work with. I can shout out Tracy Parsons, one of the best in the business. Yeah. They save marriages. They save lives. You need that for the family end of it.
Sure.
We've got our end. But we can't forget about the wives that take a beating.
And the children, too.
The children.
Kids go through an awful lot.
Cops' kids. We hear about the cops' kids.
Right. And it's not that, I think when people hear cops' kids, they perceive the cops going home and being a cop with the kid. It has nothing to do with that. As far as I know, I'm sure there is a small percentage. But what I think of is the cop working double shifts to pay for, the house, and everyone, they think that they're making all this money. But, if you take away the overtime, it's a job that pays fairly well, but it's not, if you can make an extra $30,000 working your ass off, basically, you're going to do it.
Well, it's funny you said that, because we were seeing a trend on the fire side of the house. The police officers historically, up in Massachusetts, we've got the paid details of the side.
The only state left in the union.
Actually, they're making a big comeback because they're seeing a need for it.
It's about time. Yeah.
We're seeing a need, but long story short, what we're seeing was, remember when the firefighter, they worked the second job. Yeah. They were landscapers, carpenters, and whatnot, and they always seemed to have a good level of stress.
Right.
To manage it because they had something else to do.
Right.
Now what we're seeing, a requirement for firefighters to be paramedics.
Right.
So what are these guys doing in a secondary job? They're paramedics. So they're in the uniform all the time, and we're seeing we're starting to see a burnout earlier.
Right. So you recognize that stuff, and to see you cooking hot dogs and sausages and onions and peppers and with your little umbrella. You know, you would think that here's a guy that's just out here having a good time.
Well, I am having a good time.
Well, you are, and you're very knowledgeable, and you know, you've helped so many people. It's important to me to say this because
Mike, it's just another bozo on the bus. That
yeah, but you know, there's a lot of guys that don't want to be bozo. There's a lot of guys that just, you know, they don't have the ability. They definitely don't have the drive. You got to have the drive you have. I don't even know where you get it from. You make me look like I'm snoozing.
Well, Mike, you know what? Mike's been, you know, really, God works in mysterious ways. Is that hot dog cart this summer? You know, when people are having a bad day or they've been through a lot, come down and buy your lunch, and we can get them over. You know, and it's amazing. It's another book. Actually,
I'm sat there. Truck drivers pulling in. They look like they're miserable. Of course, driving in Massachusetts, you're going to be miserable, especially if you're driving an 18-wheeler. And they get off, and then you're there, and it's just that he has an umbrella set up with lawn chairs, and you know everyone's like, "Oh, can I sit there?" Absolutely. It's just a great venue. I got to tell you. It's Joe. It's the best. It really is.
You know,
and the food's good.
You know how I got there was the King Printing. They printed my book, and I was supposed to go up to a rest area, and the state pulled the last moment in a minute. And the guy that owns the printing said, "Why don't you put it here?"
Right.
And I can't. The city of Lowell has been fantastic to me. They're a great.
Well, everyone loves you.
They're a great guy.
Yeah.
But I went to the academy with a bunch of your guys in Lowell, so that helps. You know, and I remember when I first got in there, the neighbors called me like, "You okay? You okay?" I had 6 cruisers lined up because I take care of my brothers and sisters, but they all wanted to come by and see. They looked like I got robbed.
Well, you know, Lowell's a very unique city in the sense.
Good food.
It's a very diverse city, but you know, it's a good sized city, but it's a real close knit. You know, if you live in Lowell for 30 years and you're going to know everybody, and no matter what business they're in, whether they're bankers or they're sweeping floors, everybody gets along. You see somebody, you know the kids, you know the brothers, the sisters.
Well, I missed, you know, my
camaraderie.
I grew up in Revere, and Revere it's
very
still
similar,
my home.
Right? Yep.
Oh my God! I mean, it's you know, I missed that. You know, and I wish I could stay in Revere, but it's priced us out.
Yeah, really.
The city, it's crazy. Dan Rizzo, the former mayor, did a great job developing the town, but I miss that, the camaraderie of the city. Everybody knew it, but Lowell's got a lot going on.
Sure. I remember being a kid going to Revere Beach and cooking out with my relatives and driving in the back of a pickup truck of my uncle's pickup. There'd be 8 of us back there.
You wouldn't recognize it right now.
No, it's all different, right?
But that's how I got in the hot dog business.
Right.
I mean, there was 4 or 5 great joints down there, and Kelly's is the only one really left standing.
Right, Kelly's, and they've expanded. They're everywhere. What a great place! That was worth the ride going down there at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night.
You try working down there.
Hey, we can't let the show go by without mentioning that the James Whitey Bulger passed away today. I don't know whether he died of natural causes or...
Funny, you know, talking about Whitey Bulger, I got a funny story. When I first got on the job, I wrote a ticket, and one of the lieutenants goes, "Hey, kid's a retired FBI agent here wants to talk to you." And it was John Connie and Nicky Gianturco. "Hey, kid, can you do me a favor? You know, you wrote a ticket." And it's like, you know, I'm too new.
Right.
But that was the first time I met. I actually met Conley. Then he got in trouble.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, you know, we're very fortunate to live in a state like this. We have all these championship banners with the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics. You know, on and on it goes. But Joe, I'm really glad you come on the show today. Genesis House, I don't know if it's been up there. We got Ed Sullivan, our producer over here, who stayed late today.
Great place, too. The 2 guys, the best in the business.
Right, and speaking of rest areas, we got John over here. John loves the rest areas. We can't get him out of there.
You know what? I want to shout out, too. The hot dog cart up in Lowell, we're a cigar and gun
friendly
zone. I post it. I post it all the time. I give a shout out to 2 guys. How many times have I had guys come stop up here? They come down. We go down. You know, I'm open carry. Come down and talk guns, talk cigars.
Yeah, that's right.
We're probably the only one, right? You know.
I forgot. That's right. You've given me T-shirts for Dave. You know that owns 2. That owns 2 guys, right? Oh, great guy. Yeah. So, hey, thanks for coming on.
Awesome.
We'll do this again.
Awesome,
Mike. We've got the number up there for Genesis.
Super. Genesis House. I'm telling you, if you need help and you're looking for help, 1-800.
Great people.
I can't see it.
989
6504.
6504.
Or you can call my cell 978-833-0187.
And you can always get to Joe Hot Dogs. My number's out there. Anytime, you give me a call.
We're here. And if you're sick and suffering,
you don't have to wait.
You don't have to be right. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, give us a call and come on us.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Great job, Ed. Thanks, Joe.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.